The story begins at Viscount Floret's manor. Sylvia Floret's father insists that it is time for her to get married. Sylvia responds happily, "Sure." However, seemingly not listening, he responds that he thought she would say no. He believes it must be better for her soon, but she should at least look at his face. Suddenly, they pause their conversation as they realize what she said. Her father questions if she is truly agreeing to marry Viscount Belfort. The shock is so great that her mother questions whether Sylvia is ill. Sylvia's mother assures her that it's fine if she doesn't like it. They are not forcing her. Sylvia wonders if she has really been so aloof, but considering that for the past 22 years, she has been bedridden every day and didn't even attend her debutante ball due to exhaustion. She feels she can no longer endure the situation. She fears she will become a burden, so she agrees to the marriage. Her father is frustrated and thinks they should forget about it, even if the Viscount was introduced by His Majesty. He believes it's better to refuse and find another suitor. However, his daughter assures him she will marry Viscount Belfort, so he should calm down. He begins to cry as they realize their daughter has finally grown up. He hugs his wife and tells her not to cry, but she hugs him back and reminds him that he is the one crying. This beautiful girl with her wavy hair is Sylvia Floret, the only daughter of Floret's Viscount couple. The Floret couple did their best to provide her with anything she wanted, from dresses to jewelry. However, Sylvia was unusual. She always sought the best solution and told them that anything would be fine. She often avoided certain events due to her health condition, including her debutante ball and meals she didn't like. One day, her father discussed with her mother what would happen if something happened to them and who would take care of Sylvia. His wife told him not to speak such things, but he was right that they wouldn't be able to care for her forever. The only remaining option was to find a suitable match for Sylvia before they passed away. They had given up trying to find a suitable match until His Majesty arranged the marriage with Duke Belfort, and Sylvia immediately agreed. They embraced once more, finally able to find some peace of mind. Duke Belfort's territory is a place where monsters frequently appear. It has been challenging for her to find a chance to escape until now. However, all her parents wants is for her to be happy, as that is all that's left. Hearing this, her eyes soften as she exclaims that, yes, the Dookie's a suitable match. On the day of the wedding, soldiers sing songs about the marriage. However, the celebratory songs seem excessive. Duke Belfort is the second in line for the royal succession, and while they genuinely celebrate, his irritation grows. A few days ago, he was strongly against marriage, but the king commented that it was time for him to find a partner. He heard that the Duke and his wife were looking for a match for their daughter, and felt that the Floret family was highly respected and suitable. He looked at the Duke and questioned his thoughts. The Duke believed that this was a form of coercion and was concerned about binding him to nobility early due to fear of expanding influence through marriage. Despite wanting to refuse, he realized that rejecting hastily and risking food supply disruptions would create difficulties for everyone. It was not a matter of life or death, so he bowed his head and said, "As you wish, Your Majesty." As the soldiers sing, Belfort reflects that they are probably deliberately being cheerful due to his situation. He finds their singing annoying and decides to add more morning training sessions when he returns. Austin, a magician affiliated with Viscount Belfort, informs him that the teleportation magic circle to the capital is ready. Although he is exhausted from working all night, they prepare to leave. Austin activates the circle, which shines brightly. Belfort hopes to get along with his wife but remains cautious, as there is no guarantee that the Floret family will be straightforward. He hopes he won't have to take her life. At the wedding hall, Sylvia's parents call for her. She looks at them and smiles as they shed tears of joy, thinking their daughter looks beautiful. Suddenly, with a mix of anger and happiness, her father tells her that if Viscount Belfort or his people mistreat her, she should not hesitate to come back. They will do whatever it takes to outlive them. Her mother agrees, stating that if things get rough, she should not be afraid to make a scene, although it might be difficult due to the numbers. Sylvia smiles and tells them not to worry, assuring them she will see them inside the venue as she walks alone down the aisle. She thinks that if luck is not on her side, she might end up living longer. This is the first time she is meeting Viscount Belfort, and she introduces herself as Sylvia Florette. Unknown to everyone, she has reincarnated 99 times. In her first life, she was Alyssa, a powerful sorceress who shone like a ray of light during the war against demons. Everyone praised her as she fought willingly to protect her people. Alyssa devoted herself to studying demon power and darkness to eradicate them completely. When she succeeded in opening a portal to the demon world, she sought out companions for her research. However, her own companions betrayed her, pushing her into the demon realm. In the demon world, Alyssa was overwhelmed with sorrow and confusion, questioning why she was punished despite her intentions to help her people. She was attacked by monsters and, with tears streaming down her face, destroyed them instantly. She fought for many years until she had lost track of time. Alyssa, who had climbed to the top of the demon hierarchy, no longer resembled a human. Her eyes were black, her ears long like an elf's, and her skin had changed color. Driven by revenge, she attacked the human realm and wreaked havoc on those who betrayed her. Just when it seemed that humanity was on the brink of extinction, a hero named Cleon appeared and defeated Alyssa by piercing her with his sword. As the great demon queen, Alyssa cried before Cleon, who stood over her with his sword. She condemned him as a wretched human. After her death, she woke up in an unknown place, surrounded by white. A voice explained that Alyssa's soul, corrupted by countless lives, would be punished in the cycle of reincarnation. She struggled to end her own life multiple times, but could not escape her fate. In her 99 lives, Alyssa grew increasingly exhausted and worn out. When her sentence was over, she immediately tried to end herself again. But the voice warned her that if she sought freedom through taking her life, she would repeat her punishment. As Viscount Belfort looks at her, he is smitten. Although he is certain he has never met her before, he feels something strange. Perhaps he is mistaken. The door to the wedding hall opens, and they enter together. Sylvia smiles happily, though he is nervous and she is calm. He glances at her, noting she is very thin, but he will ensure she receives proper care from now on. She thinks that as long as they fulfill their marital duties, there should be no major issues. The priest announces the celebration of the marriage between Randall Belfort and Sylvia Florette. It's a joyous occasion as the nobles smile. Her father cries as he sees the ring on her finger. The priest pronounces them husband and wife before God. Now, for the final step, the groom may kiss the bride. Despite her being 3 years younger than him, he notices his soldiers smiling and trying not to laugh. If he kisses her, he might get teased about it later. He's used to it, but she might feel embarrassed, so they should just pretend. He uses her flower bouquet to cover her face as he stops inches away from her lips, thinking this is fine. To his surprise, she parts her lips, and she kisses him passionately. She stops, thinking that should be enough. Now that she knows God is always watching, she has to be careful. It's important to show that she has a good relationship with her husband. As she thinks this, he looks at her, his face turning red. Later on, the nobles gossip among themselves, questioning if she is even human. She seems more like a succubus. She's so amazing that those who spread rumors about Sylvia are having issues. They won't show their faces at parties for a while. Even ladies around Duke Randall are completely infatuated. She's tired and wonders why she bothered with such an extravagant party. She just wants to quickly get ready for the evening. As he looks at her beautiful face, he questions if she is really 22 years old. No matter how elegant a noblewoman is, she seems far too mature for her age. It's a bit strange. He questions to himself how he should address her. Suddenly, she exclaims, "Sylvia!" He is stunned, as if she read his mind. She explains that just calling her Sylvia is fine. If he doesn't feel comfortable, he can call her wife, or dear, or whatever suits him. He thinks to himself that he is the type whose thoughts are written on his face. He explains that she can also call him Randall. There's no need to be formal. Also, she should feel free to speak her mind, as he doesn't want to put down others. She smiles, thinking that he seems like a good person. Suddenly, a maid calls for her, and she tells Randall she'll be right back. He takes this opportunity to meet with her parents, telling them that Sylvia is coming back as she stepped down for a moment to recover. He assures them he will do his best with their daughter. If they notice any areas where he is lacking, they should not hesitate to inform him. They tell him they entrust their daughter to him. However, before he goes, he questions if she is really 22, and if she has spent the last 22 years confined within the mansion. They tell him that, in reality, their daughter rarely leaves her bed, let alone the house. She has always been like a shut-in. Sometimes she sleeps for more than a day. There's no need to be alarmed, but if he remembers correctly, one time she even stayed in bed for 3 days. He wonders if it's possible for someone to be bedridden like this. He has to make sure she goes on a walk once a day. Austin then informs him that the teleportation circle is ready. He approaches his wife, extends his hand to her, and explains, "Shall we go, my wife?" She smiles and thinks that he's cute. He and his men make their way to the portal. After that, she's inside a carriage and thinks that he's a little bit naive, but she is glad he's a good person. Even after she dies, he will be able to marry easily. She then falls asleep for a moment. After a while, she wakes up and notices the forest. She wonders if she really came to a place so far from where she started. Suddenly, the faces of her saddened parents come to mind. It's been a while since she went outside, so she's already feeling stuffy. She just wants to lay down, but she guesses she'll have to endure it. After all, it is the first night. Suddenly, Randall questions Austin if he heard a noise just now, but Austin didn't hear anything. Randall thinks he may have misheard. He then questions Austin about why he has been looking unhappy recently. Austin responds that it would be more strange if he wasn't upset. Randall questions why Austin didn't use the portal. The old-fashioned teleportation portal is nothing but flashy. If Austin was dissatisfied, why didn't he make a portal himself? If he had, they might already be at the castle, as Austin is an outstanding wizard after all. Austin rolls his eyes and sighs loudly. He questions why he should do that. His magic has been drained since morning. He doesn't even know if he'll have enough left, so unless he is absolutely necessary, he won't do more. Randall thinks Austin is obsessed with money. Suddenly, Randall feels an ominous aura. Sylvia also feels it. Randall orders Austin to create a barrier around the forest. He instructs Sylvia not to open the windows or make any noise. Suddenly, they sense a strange energy approaching them. The sound of a shrieking is heard as a giant werewolf lunges at them. Randall unsheathes his sword and orders everyone to draw their swords and protect the carriage. They engage with the beast. These creatures are known as Pyrobots, and they seem endless. It's their first time seeing this many Pyrobots in the forest. They wonder why there are so many today of all days. Meanwhile, Randall slashes and destroys each one in his way. He glances at the carriage, not expecting this. He thinks that as soon as she went out, she encountered monsters. He wonders what he should do if she's trembling in fear. However, she's perfectly fine, and her servant is the one trembling in fear. Meanwhile, Jeffrey is becoming exhausted after fighting the Pyrobots. He sees his leader facing off another Pyrobot. Randall has already gotten rid of more than half of them by himself. Suddenly, Jeffrey notices 2 boys in the bushes. They seem to be lost. One of them mistakes this as the way. Jeffrey is surprised to see them at night. He questions why there are children out here like this. He tells the boys to run somewhere safe. However, they are paralyzed with fear. Seeing this, Jeffrey thinks he needs to protect them. But at that moment, a giant hand attacks him. He is wounded and bleeding out next to the carriage as the monster approaches him. Noticing this, Sylvia opens the door to the carriage and looks outside. Randall is horrified. He tries to say something, but the words don't come out. Upon noticing her, the monster lunges at her. She closes her eyes, ready to accept her fate. However, at that moment, a strange aura emits from her. Randall exclaims in surprise as he desperately calls her name. However, he cannot do anything as he is defending himself against one of the monsters. Suddenly, a red glow appears in her eyes, and a nearby monster reacts. It charges at the other monster, tackling it to the ground. In an instant, they begin to attack one another. Jeffrey stares at this scene in shock, questioning what's happening. Sylvia puts a finger to her lips and tells him to be quiet. He closes his eyes and faints. Randall asks Sylvia if she is all right and if she has any injuries. She tells him she's fine, but Jeffrey needs urgent attention. Seeing him, Randall looks petrified. Randall Knights rushes toward Jeffrey and asks Austin to help stop the bleeding. Austin rushes over and orders Randall to turn Jeffrey around so he can get a better view of the wounds. Sylvia notices that Randall's hands are shaking, so she takes the opportunity to hold his hand, which lightens his mood. She tells him it will be all right and that there's no need to be anxious. His life is not in danger, so they should hurry and make their way back to the castle. Sometime later, Jeffrey comments that he really thought he was a goner this time. Randall tells him to thank Austin, as he completely exhausted himself teleporting them. Jeffrey apologizes to Sylvia for her being exposed to such an ugly sight on her first day. She smiles, telling him not at all. She is just glad to see that he's safe. If you're wondering what happened to those kids, they were not injured. She checked their conditions and then escorted them back to the village. Since Jeffrey doesn't remember what happened, she knows that the magic worked properly. She never expected to start using magic in such darkness all of a sudden, but it just happened. However, when that monster attacked her, she thought she wouldn't mind dying right then and there, but because those children were there, she couldn't bring herself to die in front of them. Additionally, Randall called her name so urgently that she couldn't die. For such a noble and virtuous person, the sight of his wife being mangled and torn apart by a monster would have been quite shocking. However, there will be plenty of opportunities to die in the future, so they should wait for the next one. Most importantly, it's fortunate that Austin was far away at the time. Had he been a little closer, he would have noticed that she used magic. Now she must be careful. After all, she is just an ordinary person, and it's unusual for an ordinary person to use magic. A maid questions if they should head back now, as everyone is waiting for them. Both are confused, suddenly greeted by the servants, Butler Walcott and headmaid Thelma. Randall informs them that this is the infirmary. He questions why they couldn't have waited until they got to the hall. The head butler tells him that their plan was already delayed because of the injured knight, and they wanted to greet him as soon as possible. He informs his wife that their servants only have one flaw: they're very enthusiastic. Sylvia smiles, and with her beautiful eyes states that she is Sylvia Flaherty Belfort. She requests that they please take care of her from now on. Thelma tells her, of course, and requests to allow her to show her around. This room is where she will be staying from now on, she says. The previous Duchess also used this room. Sylvia then notices a portrait of the previous Duke and Duchess alongside the current Duke. She'll need to commission a portrait of herself and the Duke to hang in its place. She stares at the portrait and thinks that these people are the Duke and Duchess. She's seen them before, in her former life, no matter how many times she tried to die back then. She always came back to life because her punishment was not yet over. She was ostracized by villagers who saw her as a monster. She saw a man and woman fighting against monsters. With one wave of her hand, they vanished into thin air. She tells them that it would be best if they refrain from wandering around as it is dangerous. She comments on an old memory, but if they headed out from here, they should come across the main road. One requests that she wait. She tells him not to bother telling anyone else that they saw her. Despite their shabby appearance, she thought they gave off an elegant demeanor. It turns out they were the Duke and Duchess of Belfort. This means her husband is the child of the couple she saved. Despite their shabby appearance, she noted that they had an elegant demeanor. It turns out that the Duke and Duchess of Belfort were their actual titles. While she is having a bath, servants question if it's too hot, having prepared a special fragrance oil in honor of her arrival. She is pleased with it and informs them that she loves it. They smile at her happily and tell her that she is truly beautiful, almost like a female succubus. They comment on how stunning she is and state that they would have no regrets if they could live just for a moment like a princess. She asked if they want her face. They exclaims that she's funny, but she wasn't joking. The issue now is their first night, which she would like to do properly and preferably quickly. She wonders if he will be a burden in bed. If he tries anything weird, she'll knock him out. She plans to get it done within an hour and then go to sleep. She meticulously grooms her hair, wearing the finest pajamas prepared by Thelma, and displays incredible natural beauty. Meanwhile, her husband sits nervously in the room. She enters the room with her long, beautiful hair and a calm expression. She smiles at Randall and tells him hello. Seeing his body for the first time, she thinks it's not bad. Randall tells her that he has something to discuss with her for a moment and asks if that would be all right. She sits on the bed and tells him, of course, they should sit down and talk together. He thinks to himself that they've had quite a long day today, so it only seems right to rest now. Furthermore, even if it's a marriage arrangement by the emperor, it is to hold a ceremonial first night only when the couple's hearts are truly connected. So he plans to tell her that they can rest for tonight. However, she is taking the initiative. He holds her hands and inquires what she's doing. She questions what's wrong and tells him to continue what he's saying while she undresses him, as it is the marital duty that must be done. She climbs on top of him as he asks her to wait for a moment. He doesn't want to force her into this sort of thing out of a sense of obligation. She responds that she's not being pressured. It's just what she considers her duty. She's on top of him with her hand first against his chest. He tells her that's exactly the problem. She doesn't even like him. However, to his shock, she tells him that she likes him. He blushes for a moment and then requests that she come down from on top of him. She explains if he's feeling embarrassed about her being on top. They can switch positions. Suddenly, he exclaims, "Sylvia, please." Realizing his beauty was so alluring, she almost lost herself. He seems not even realize it, and she decides to step away. She tells him she won't do anything and will step away. Suddenly, she falls on top of him. He questions if this is the average reaction from facing those monsters earlier or if she got injured without him realizing. He realizes that she's just a noble she's never seen such a scene in her life before. It must have been a true traumatizing experience for her. He tries to call for help but immediately notices that she's only sleeping. He breathes a sigh of relief. It's fortunate, but they are too close right now. If he could just move her to the side a little, but unfortunately, or perhaps fortunately, she is holding on to him tightly, so it looks like he won't be sleeping tonight. The next morning, she wakes up to the sound of birds chirping. He really seems to have not slept at all and inquires if she has woken up. She gives him a thumbs up, questioning if they did it. He explains that he is not someone who would take advantage of a slumbering woman. She seems, as he states, to be okay and asks her to move to the side a bit. She apologizes, stating she didn't mean it like that and was just worried she may have taken advantage of him. He questions himself about this woman. Later, he provides her with a lot of food, telling her she was quite exhausted last night, so he instructed the chefs to prepare some nutritious food for her. He also didn't want her to feel uncomfortable, so he told the servants to wait outside. Looking at everything he has done, it seems they really didn't sleep together last night. However, she believes she fell asleep before anything occurred. When she was in Florette, she could barely eat one meal, let alone 3, but he's looking at her as if he's feeding a pet. She questions Randall on when they should consummate their marriage since they weren't able to do it last night. He reminds Sylvia that he had said he doesn't wish for her to do something she doesn't want to do purely out of a sense of obligation, especially when she doesn't even have feelings for him. Sylvia comments that if that's the case, won't she be ridiculed as a duchess whose marriage is not even consummated? He tells her no, as no northerner would be so unkind as to ridicule her for such things. He can assure her of that. She thinks to herself he is definitely still young and naive. After all, humans were the ones who abandoned Alyssa even though she sacrificed herself for them. She couldn't even consummate her marriage on the first night as a normal couple should have. How could he think no one would criticize her? Maybe he's really naive or just really foolish. So, she must deceive the eyes of God in order to die naturally in this life. To do that, she needs his help to pretend to be a couple. In that case, she has a proposal. She suggests they make a deal. He's confused, but she further elaborates that since he said he wouldn't be able to spend the night with someone like her who he doesn't like, they should try to like each other. First, they need to get used to touching each other. As a condition for touching him whenever she wants, she will grant him one desire each time. He is shocked and questions what she means by touching. She exclaims that since it's their first time, they should just hold hands. He clears his throat, stating that's acceptable. She comments that he decided faster than she expected and questions if he has something he wants in return. He approaches her and flatly asks if she could try a meal that he prepared, a special dish from Belfort. As his first request, he wants her to enjoy it. She looks at it and wonders how he could request something so cruel. As they walk together holding hands, he tries not to laugh but fails miserably. She requests that he stop laughing, and he tells her he's sorry but she's obviously upset. Randall never expected that someone who was so calm and composed would fall apart in front of their specialty. He wonders if holding hands is such a condition. Even if it's an arranged marriage by the emperor, if she had said she wanted to hold hands, he wouldn't have refused her. Still, this isn't a bad deal. If Sylvia is truly the king's spy, keeping her by his side would make it easier to observe her. Although it weighs on his conscience slightly, he brushes it off and informs Sally that some guests are expected to start arriving in about 3 days for the banquet. This will be the first time she officially hosts guests as a duchess. Randall tells her that everyone seems quite worried. Perhaps it's due to her intense curiosity, but they appear eager to meet her. Since it's not a large-scale banquet, she shouldn't have much trouble. Thelma will stay by her side, and if she needs anything, Walcolt will fetch it for her. She acknowledges that organizing a banquet is typically the host's responsibility. Having done it a few times before in her past lives, it should be relatively easy. Since it's bothersome, she'll handle things roughly. She assures him that she will do her best. As they walk together, he informs her that he has some work to attend to and will see her in the evening. She responds, "Yes, take care and come back safely, dear." Upon hearing this, his eyes widen, and he slightly blushes. She walks away, leaving him with a pounding heart, fantasizing about her. It's revenge for the special meal. At the entrance of the Duchy of Belfort, Randall and his knights meet the children. He comments that they look healthy, which is a relief. Randall tells the boys to listen carefully. It was fortunate that nothing happened last time, but they need to play only in areas with barriers from now on, as Austin's barrier does not cover the forest. The boys explained that they didn't go into the forest, but their parents were upset because the herb garden there was repeatedly damaged, so they went to another forest. Randall apologizes, saying he didn't know they were good kids, but that they need to be more careful next time. The two boys run off, saying goodbye to Randall, who waves and smiles at them. Moments later, the atmosphere changes. Despite it being a forest near the village, the herb garden is frequently damaged. They regularly hunt and eliminate wild animals, so it could be monsters, but a barrier should be installed around the village. To be safe, they should investigate. He gives instructions that there might be monster inhabitants in the forest. Until they confirm that the barrier stones are functioning properly, they should remain vigilant. As he gazes at the beautiful scenery, he thinks it seems too quiet, possibly because few people visit the area. He instructs his men to check everything. After examining the area, they reports that everything seems fine and there are no issues. However, the last barrier stone, located in the center of the forest, shows a strange glow surrounded by a dark aura. He notices that the barrier stone is split in half and suddenly, they are attacked by a giant snake with silver scales and red eyes. At that moment, Sylvia's drinking cup cracks. The knights attack the snake with a flurry of strikes. Randall questions if this is the last of the creatures. He asks his knights if there are any injuries, and they report only minor scratches. He orders the injured to be sent back to the castle quickly. He examines the stone and notices the clean cut. Monsters aren't intelligent enough to make such a precise cut, and it's not a demon either. If it were, Austin Perry would have reacted. This is likely the work of a darkness bug. Even though they are no longer human, they still perform such acts. He orders that a list be kept of everyone entering and exiting their territory without exception. They must find these creatures before they harm civilians. Back at the Duke's mansion, Sylvia is informed that Thelma is calling for her. They are in the banquet hall of the main castle, which the king renovated for his new relative. As a result, this once decrepit castle now has a beautiful appearance. Sylvia is surprised at its elegance. The banquet hall, while mostly intact, could use a bit more maintenance. Thelma comments that she anticipated this and has called the head of the organization, who will be there shortly. Although she was considering leaving it as it is due to the hassle of additional maintenance, she has no choice but to go with it. In the Belfort reception room, the head of the Cheville, Sir Chick Herrera, greets Sylvia and expresses pleasure at meeting her for the first time. Sylvia smiles warmly and thanks him for coming, inviting him to take a seat. He is smitten, thinking her to be a rare beauty and an ignorant lady whom he could exploit. He presents a list of documents for her review, detailing the latest items. The maid's remarks that the colors and materials are beautiful and luxurious. However, Sylvia immediately notices that the quality isn't bad. Thelma questions the cost. Chick Herrera tells her that if all items are used, it will total 30 gold. Sylvia questions this, and Thelma points out that the amount is more than half of the Duke's monthly profit. Most of the income from the Duchy of Belfort is used to aid those affected by demon attacks, making it a significant burden. Thelma states that 30 gold is not a small amount, and Chick Herrera should understand their situation. She suggests lowering the price. Chick Herrera, surprised, states that it was difficult to come to such a dangerous place. She's even getting it at face value. She requests to pay in installments. Sylvia, having seen similar items in the capital months ago, realizes he is trying to sell old stock at an inflated price. He is shocked by her keen observation but insists these are the latest trends. Sylvia asks if he knows who she is. Chick Herrera, confident, asserts that of course, he is familiar with her as Sylvia Florette Belfort. Sylvia warns him to reconsider his stance. If there's any signs of falsehood, he would be making an enemy of both Florette and Belfort, and would face consequences similar to insulting the royal family. Chick Herrera's face becomes pale and he begins to hiccup. Sylvia picks up the pen to sign, but he suddenly becomes more reasonable and offers the items for 15 gold. Later, Randall is informed of Sylvia's feats and thinks it's good news. He asks if Sylvia is in the bedroom. Thelma informs him that she fell asleep immediately after the man left. Randall explains he was going to head straight to the bedroom anyway, so it doesn't matter. Inside the bedroom, Sylvia is sleeping soundly on her back. Randall observes that she is fast asleep and moves quietly to avoid waking her. He finds it strange that Sylvia seems to be a homebody. Suddenly, he holds her hand and questions what she is doing. She asks if he dislikes physical intimacy before bed, implying impotence. Randall dodges the question, but Sylvia insists that they should have daily intimacy as husband and wife. She wonders why he keeps refusing. He gazes at her slim figure, radiant eyes, and glorious hair, and feels overwhelmed by her delicate beauty. He sighs and tells her to just go to sleep. They leave it at that for now. Randall thinks she is a peculiar woman, but Randall is a lucky man, as if many men find their marriages unfulfilling of needs. Later, the Lord is holding a report but seems lost in thought. Austin finds himself increasingly irritated despite the fact that Randall his usual kind. Austin wonders if he has been paying attention to the report. The way he is smiling resembles a puppy. He questions why he is smiling like that and wonders if it is that obvious. Whenever he thinks about what happened that morning, he cannot help but laugh. This morning, he had brought his country specialty to her once again, and it looked as appetizing as ever. She glanced at it with hesitation and seemed nervous to even approach it. He pushed it toward her and stated that if she ate it, he would let her hold his hand today. She told him that if it was just his hand, he could forget it. He then suggested a hug, but she glared at him with disdain. Nonetheless, she ate all of it, leaving only some slices of oranges and tomatoes on the plate. She told him to be prepared, as he would be paying for it tonight. He thought to himself that perhaps she really did not understand what a first night was. She was still young. At that moment, Austin called for his attention. He questioned what would happen if the madam was truly a spy for the king. However, Randall, who was in love, stated that Austin was free to think whatever he liked, but should be careful with his words in front of others. Austin bowed and apologized. Randall told him it was fine as long as he understood. More importantly, it seemed they needed to improve the formula for the barrier stone. Austin commented that they needed to reinforce the barrier even more. He could do it himself, but it would be quite tiring for him, as there were not many with his talent. He would do his best as long as they gave him a bonus. If he was told to work hard, he would think about the money he would earn. He exclaimed to just leave it to him. Meanwhile, Sylvia inquired if her schedule was clear for the rest of the day. Thelma told her yes and complimented her on how good she looked in her outfit. She had lost track of how many dresses she had tried on for the upcoming banquet. The blue one was nice, but she thought the pink one was the best. She wondered if she looked pretty in all of them. What's the point of trying them all on? She had decided quickly after making her choice. Suddenly, she noticed Austin lying on the ground with documents and papers scattered around him. She asked him who he was, but Thelma became irritated and stated that this person was lying around wherever he wanted again. As he slowly got up, she informed him that their madam was surprised. He furiously explained that she should stop making noise, as someone as delicate as him would not just leave things anywhere. His napping spots were carefully calculated. She exchanged a few words with him, but she then changed her expression to a pleasant one when addressing Sylvia. She told Sylvia to head back first and she will clean up the mess. Sylvia asked her to wait a moment. She noticed the lighting, temperature, and humidity of the area, and thought that it was perfect. She then mentioned that she would also take a seat there for a bit. If he had something to do, he should go ahead and not mind her. He was flabbergasted, his mouth open wide, but knowing he could not go against her, he told her yes. He wondered why she was acting so pleasant. She might be their madam, but she could also be a spy for the king. He planned to keep his guard up. However, she was merely pleased with the humidity and comfort of the area she had chosen, much like a contented cat. As she enjoyed herself, he returned to work on his formula. She noticed that it was very magic barrier, similar to one she had made when she was Alyssa, and it did not seem to involve her now. Suddenly, he screamed, stating that if this was the case, he would have to recalculate from the beginning. When the chick had come earlier, she had stepped in because Thelma and me had looked pitiful, but there should be no need for her to help this time. However, there was not much time left until the deadline, and he would probably be fine even if she left him alone. She thought that he should be able to reinforce the barrier, as the knights would be able to react to invasions faster, thus decreasing the possibility of her dying from an accident. Being creative, she considered ruining it and requested to take a look. She told him that while he knew her father was the vice president of Alvarez Academy, however, he's sure she had never attended the academy. She grabbed a paper and mentioned that perhaps she had seen and heard some things. She looked at the paper as Austin burned with anger. She thought that it was not that good to begin with. She heard that after Alyssa, Austin was the only one worthy of being called an archmage. He still had a long way to go, a very, very long way. Without even realizing it, she began fixing his formula, an old habit of hers. He took the paper from her and inquired what she was doing. As he looked over it, he suddenly stopped, marveling at its brilliance. It was a masterpiece, a work of art. She told him that, as expected, someone like her, who did not know anything, should not be touching it recklessly. She would be going now and asked him not to tell anyone she was the one who fixed it. He stared at her, his eyes softening as he looked at the formula. He thought it was ridiculous that she had so easily understood this difficult formula and wondered how he could have suspected such a genius. When she left, he shouted, "Madam." That night at the banquet, the sky was beautiful, and the stars shone brightly. The mansion's light was beautiful, and nobles arrived one by one, greeted by the maids and servants. Meanwhile, the Duke was still preparing himself, thinking he would be a terrible husband for keeping his wife waiting. A servant told him to look in the mirror, and he stared at himself, finding he looked stunning. Obviously, all the girls will go crazy when they see him. He commented that it seemed they had put in more effort than usual. Walcolt told him that he needed to look this good to stand confidently by his wife's side. He admitted he had never dressed up out of fear of being overshadowed by someone else's beauty. The butler told him it was time to leave his throne of victory. He blushed, eager to see Sylvia. Meanwhile, the maids remarked that she was beautiful, and I think the maids are all stunning. It's the first time I see maids as beautiful as the protagonist. They commented that she was the prettiest person they had ever dressed. She wondered if it was really that fun to dress her, and questioned how many hours they had kept her there, but found their excitement kinda cute. Suddenly, a maid informed the others that they should go out the door to present their madam to the Duke. She guessed she would be treated like a doll at the next banquet and planned to find a way to escape next time. As the Duke saw her, he noticed her beautiful dress, stunning figure, beautiful eyes, and beautiful hair. He was awestruck, thinking she really was a succubus. She apologized for making him wait too long. However, he paid her no mind and held her hand, stating that she was extremely beautiful. Her eyes showed no emotion for a moment, but she quickly smiled and thanked him, commenting that if he liked it this much, maybe she should wear this outfit to the bedroom tonight. The Duke blushed deeply, exclaiming her name. She responded that she was just kidding, but she wasn't entirely, and it didn't work. As they walked down the stairs, they caught the attention of all the nobles. He thanked everyone for coming to congratulate them on their marriage and introduced Sylvia as Sylvia Floret Belfort, his wife, and the daughter of Belfort. She introduced herself, stating that she was honored to be congratulated on their marriage and wished everyone joy and peace during their stay. The nobles comment that they are a beautiful couple. They knew that the Duke was famously attractive, but they think she is also very pretty. They even seem to have a good relationship. They were concerned since she came from a house favored by the royal family, but if they're getting along so well, there should be nothing for them to worry about. The Duke then exclaims Marquis Seacrine, "It's been a while." He greeted him and inquired if he has been well. He questioned how his daughter has been. He shook his head and told him not to even start on that. She went down to the south to see the war and hasn't been back. He wonders when that fool will ever learn to behave like a lady. She's been a tomboy since she was a little girl. Randall questions the situation in the south. He tells him that they say it's almost over and that the crown prince has been rampaging like a madman. Meanwhile, Sylvia sits on her throne and thinks that he looks good. It really is quite interesting. Generally, people in higher positions tend to flaunt their status, but Randall doesn't show any signs of that. He simply sees other people as just another human being like himself. So, it'd be nice if they could just fulfill their marital duties and stop meeting each other. Before that, upright gaze reads too deeply into her soul. Suddenly, a blonde girl with purple eyes and flawless skin exclaims, "It's a pleasure to meet the Duchess. Her name is Rubia Cleaver." Seeing her expression, it seemed she had something to say. People like her, she can tell just by looking at them, are blinded by their excessive loyalty to their lord. They're so loyal that they'll even defy their own loyalty and go against their lord's will. She seems to be one of those cases. It seems she is not a fan of her. Rubia requests to ask one thing. Does she realize, as Duchess, just how many opportunities the region has missed out on due to this marriage? She questions if she realizes how many opportunities the northern region has missed out on due to this marriage. Sylvia is unimpressed, but Rubia continues, stating that the Duke is in desperate need of political allies who can help him. Marriage is an excellent way to expand one's influence, given the family of His Majesty's most faithful subjects. So, is it even possible that she will be of help to the north? She believes there are many other ladies who would be better suited to occupy the seat she holds. She thinks this should be enough for her to understand. If she truly cares for her lordship, then she should step down immediately. She knows that she looks delicate even at first glance, so she is sure this is enough to get her confused after being flustered by her words. She wants to see her fall to the floor, anything that would make her lose face, but she really responds so, and there's no better response than "so what?" Hearing her words, Rubia is done. Still, there is a question. Sylvia inquires if telling her about all this would stop the marriage, as if it never happened. Rubia senses a strange feeling. Sylvia tells her that if she cannot acknowledge her as Duchess, then she should go to His Majesty, the King himself, knowing that neither she nor he arranged this marriage. It's cowardly to condemn Sylvia when she knows how everything goes already. Sylvia crosses her arms and thinks that this is boring. Those kinds of remarks are all the same. It's nothing new. Suddenly, a magic circle appears, and a giant octopus tentacle emerges from it. The nobles stare at it flabbergasted, as if not understanding that they should be running. But when the monster fully appears, they run for their lives, screaming. Sylvia and Rubia stare at it, but Randall exclaims, "No, Sylvia!" He tells her to run, but Sylvia questions to herself if this time she will finally die. Without any suspicion, she feels at peace. Suddenly, Rubia grabs her hand and questions what she is doing, why she didn't try to avoid it immediately. But the monster appears in front of her. It's quite troublesome, but Sylvia decides to hold on and protect Rhea from the incoming attack. Sylvia feels the pain of the force, but Rubia begins to cry from her heroism. Upon seeing this, Randall is enraged. Her back is bloody, and she can barely stand. Moments later, she faints from the pain. Suddenly, she appears in a different place and questions where she is. She doesn't remember this. It's Alicia from her first life. The boy next to her is Cleon.